Hey first graders, today we're going to be making paper sculptures. I need you to find a piece of cardboard that you can use as the bottom of your sculpture. So if you have a delivery box in your recycle bin that you can take the lid off of, that would be perfect. But anything sturdy will do. I'm going to show you different ways of folding and gluing strips of paper to create your sculpture. So let's get started. Okay guys, so today's video is going to be a little different. It's not going to really be a step-by-step. I'm just going to show you some different techniques, and I'm going to leave it to you to how you want to use those techniques. And you can just pick one and do your whole sculpture with just that one technique, or you can try all of them. Okay, so on my sculpture, I've got kind of a zigzag with a little shape collaged onto it, a little leaf. I guess it could be a tree too. I've got an arc, this thing. I've got a little heart. I've got a spiral. And I've got a spring. And you guys might remember we had a spring lesson a few weeks ago, and I'll put a link to it on here if you want a refresher on how to make a spring. Okay. So before we start, you are going to have to find a sturdy scrap of some sort. So I've got a really tiny scrap. It's probably smaller than a book. This is something called mat board, and I just had some little scraps lying around. What you might have that would work is like an old cereal box or an old cracker box. If you just cut a rectangle out of the side of the box, perfect. Old file folders work too if mom or dad have any of those laying around. Okay, so I've got my sturdy piece. That's going to be the base of my sculpture. This is what's going to hold it all up. So that's why it needs to be sturdy, because if it was just a regular piece of paper, it would get all floppy. Okay, you're going to need a bunch of skinny pieces of paper, and I just stacked up a couple of colors and cut skinny lines. This would work with all one color too, like all white would work perfectly. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to show you is the arc, because it's really one of the simplest. And there's a technique to it that you're going to need to know for a lot of these. And that's called making a tab, right? If I wanted this to go like that, I wouldn't be able to glue this edge, right? It's really, really skinny. There's not a lot of surface area for me to put my glue on. So to fix that, I'm going to take the ends of the strip and I'm going to bend them in a little bit, just a little fold. One there, one there. So it'll go like that. So I'm going to put my glue on the bottoms of those tabs. Now I'm using bottle glue. You can also use a glue stick or even tape. It'll look a little bit messy, but if that's what you got, that's what you got. I will say you have to be a little more patient with the bottle glue. It takes a little bit longer to dry, but it's stronger than a glue stick. So I think it's worth a little bit of an extra weight. Okay. So I'm going to curve this how I want it. Do I want it really close together like that? Do I want it really spread out like that? I kind of like how close together looks for this. And I want it on the edge here. Okay, so I'm just going to hold it for a few seconds while the glue dries. I don't need to wait for it to dry completely, just enough so that when I let go, it stays put. And that seems pretty good. Okay, so that was the arc with the tabs. Now I'm going to show you guys how to do a curl or a spiral. You're going to take a strip of paper and a pencil or a pen or a marker or something skinny. And you're going to start wrapping the paper around your pencil like this. Now, if you want a really tight curl, go slow like this and try to keep it really close to the pencil. If you want a looser curl, you can use a larger, like a wider object, like a thick marker. You can also, when you wrap it, instead of going really tight and slow like what I've been doing, you can let it be looser like that. You can see there's a little extra sticking out there. I'll let it get looser towards the end. Okay, like that. When I let go, I've got this little spiral that's tight and close together on the inside. It's kind of looser on the outside. And I can just glue the bottom here, or I could fold a tab too if I wanted, but I don't think I need a tab. Wonder. Nah, I'll let it be separate. I'll put it on the other side. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of glue there. I'll hold that on. Okay, for a zigzag, I'm going to do a type of fold called an accordion fold. And if you've ever made a paper fan, it's the exact same idea, just with a skinny piece of paper. So I'm going to fold one way a little bit, and I'm going to go back. And the other way, and back. You can see I have a little zigzag. So you could glue both ends down. That would look like that. Or if you did more folds, like if you folded them smaller, you'd have more zigzags. You could also just glue down one end, like on my first example, that little tree that I had, I put it on top of the zigzag. Right? I just cut out the shape, I made a little tab, and I glued it on top. But I kind of like the idea of stretching this out like that. So I'm going to put glue on the ends. Okay, now for my spring. I'm not going to go over every step for the spring just because we had a separate lesson on it, but I'll show you while I make this. Okay, there's my spring. And in my first example, I had it stretched out like that. It kind of looks like the top half of a little flower if I do that. But I want this to look a little different. So I'm just gonna leave it straight up and down like that. And I'll put it right in there. Okay, the last thing I'm going to show you guys is the little heart, and I actually made it out of 2 parts. Actually, this is a little big. Let me trim it down. About in half, like that. Okay, So I just took a shorter strip and I brought it together like that. I didn't pinch the top, I left it curvy. And I'm just gonna glue the ends together. Like that. And then I did the same thing with another piece of paper. So now I have two. And then I just put a little bit of glue on the side of one. And I put them together. Okay. So there's a couple of ways I could attach the heart. I can just fold the bottom to make a tab like that. And then put it down like that. Another way you could attach it without making a tab is to leave it flat and then attach it to the side of another part of your sculpture. I think I'm gonna keep the tab idea because I like the idea of my heart being right there. Okay, so those are all my different techniques, but I want you guys to remember that you don't have to use every technique and that you can combine things. For example, if you just wanted your sculpture to be all hearts, you could see what it looks like when you make a bunch of these and put them all in a row and it made like a heart-shaped tunnel. Or you could try putting a bigger arc over your first arc in a different direction, and then another big arc, and then another big arc. You could make stuff like make a star by making a bunch of these and gluing them together. You could make a snail by taking a spiral and putting one of these little half a hearts in front of it. So I want you guys to use your imagination, pick some of the techniques that you like, and have fun. So I will see you guys next week for a new lesson.